deep down inside, you know when you've crossed that line where you're now no longer trying to help a situation, but you're trying to just hurt an individual. You know when that is. It's hard for me to quantify that or put that into words, but you know when you cross that line. We're not saying that because we want to live at peace with ourselves and others, that there's never a time to confront someone, to correct someone, to deal with an issue. What we are saying is this, that there's never a time to engage in emotional warfare where we're not trying to be productive but destructive, where we're not trying to help but to hurt. I hope that's clear, and I hope I'm being clear with those words. Wars and fightings that we engage in, they come from within us. That's what James said. He said, from whence come wars and fightings among you? Come they not hence, even of your own lusts that war in your members? Today, we're going to switch from the introspective view of ourselves to kind of the outer view of how to deal with others during times of conflict. When we decide to recompense to men evil for evil, when we decide that it is acceptable for us to retaliate when someone has attacked us, this is how your life will go. It will be a series of retaliation and revenge. Retaliation and revenge. Retaliation and revenge. And isn't that what we read in Romans 12:17? Isn't this exactly what Paul is warning us to stay away from? He says, recompense to no man evil for evil. Sometimes this is referred to as tit for tat. Here's a definition of that phrase. The phrase means the infliction of an injury or insult in return for one that has been suffered. So someone injures you, you injure them. Someone insults you, you insult them. Someone attacks you, you attack them. Now, the teaching of recompensing evil for evil, or trying to teach people not to recompense evil for evil, is very difficult. And here's why. Because in my flesh and in your flesh, we want to retaliate and we want revenge. But this is not wise. And what I want to do this morning is I want to give you 3 reasons why we must not recompense evil for evil. We'll see them here in the story of Samson. You will find yourself at some point in a position where somebody harms you, where somebody injures you, where somebody insults you, where somebody does evil towards you, and you might feel that you're completely innocent in that attack, and you might be innocent. You might not be innocent, but you might be innocent. And in that moment, your flesh will desire to recompense evil for evil. It'll desire to return the harsh word with a harsh word. It'll desire to return the attack with an attack. It'll desire to want to retaliate. But there are some major reasons why you, if you were wise, and if I were wise, would keep ourselves and would take the advice that the Apostle Paul gives us, which is to recompense to no man evil for evil. Now you say, well, why would we want to do that? Why would we not want to get revenge? If you're writing these notes down, I'd like you to write this down. Point number 1 is this. When we engage in retaliation, there will be no end in sight. Notice what Samson says, Judges 15, look at verse 7. And Samson said unto them, though ye have done this, notice what he says, yet will I be avenged of you. And we see Samson taking vengeance or revenge into his own hands. And I want you to notice what Samson says. Because Samson has this idea, and it's the same idea that you have, and it's the same idea that I have. He has this idea that I'm just going to do this one thing, this one time, and then it will be done. He says, and after that, I will cease. He says, they hurt me, so I'm going to hurt them, and then we'll be done. The problem with that thinking is this, that as soon as you hurt them, the other party says, well, they hurt me, so I'll hurt them, and then we'll be done. But as soon as they do that, then you think, well, they hurt me again, so I'll hurt them again, and then we'll be done. And the other party thinks, well, they hurt me again, and I'll hurt them again. And here's the problem. Here's the problem with playing the recompense evil for evil game, is that when we engage in retaliation, there will be no end in sight. Someone said this, without forgiveness, life is governed by an endless cycle of resentment and retaliation. And when we read the story between Samson and the Philistines, we find it maybe even a little amusing that they would go back and forth, tit for tat, back and forth with these attacks. But the truth is this, that many people's marriages look like this. Many people's relationships with their parents looks like this. And here's all I'm telling you. Your flesh wants to, and your soul wants to engage in this retaliation, in this avenging and revenge, but just realize that as soon as you take that step, as soon as you go in that direction, there is no end in sight. You may say, I will do this, and after that I will cease, but there is no ceasing when we choose to retaliate. Matthew chapter 5, look at verse 38. Notice what Jesus said. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. So let me go ahead and explain to you what Jesus is saying here, because this is actually a quote from the Old Testament. This is a law that Moses gave, and he gave it as a governmental law that they were to take an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. And it was the law of the land that if I injured you and I took your eye, then the law, when I was found guilty, the government, the people, the congregation would take my eye as a form of justice. If I take your tooth, they'll take my tooth. Now, sometimes the liberals will look at this and they'll try to say, see, Jesus was condemning this. Hey, you know what? The Bible says the law of the Lord is perfect. Jesus did not condemn the law of Moses. Jesus affirmed the law of Moses. Jesus affirmed the teachings of Moses. He's not speaking negative about this law. Here's what he's saying. He says, ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you, that ye resist not evil. And here's what he's saying. The Bible teaches, and Moses taught, that government should take justice on your behalf. And that when you've been injured and your eye has been taken or your tooth has been taken, that government should step in for you and make that right and make that just. What Jesus is saying is, the problem is this, that when government doesn't, because Jesus is living under the Roman Empire, a corrupt government like the one that you and I live in today. He says when the government doesn't step in and when the government doesn't give justice, what I'm telling you is this, that it is not your job to take the law into your own hands. He says, when you say as an individual that I'm going to remove the eye or I'm going to take the tooth, he says, ye resist not evil. Because here's what he's saying. Your flesh, your body, your old man wants to do revenge, wants to retaliate, wants to do evil, and you're not resisting it. He says, but I say unto you that ye resist not evil. And then he says this, but whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek. And I don't know about you, but to me, if someone slaps you in the face, that's probably the worst insults you could give somebody, you know? There's this thing about just slapping someone in the face that just could create a lot of bitterness and anger, and I'd just be careful about that. And this is the example that Jesus is giving. He says, when someone smites you in the cheek, and they hit you in the face, when they insult you and hurt you, Jesus says, turn to him the other also. Said, oh, when somebody smites me in the cheek, then I'm going to smite them in the cheek. Yeah, but the problem is that then they're going to try to smite you in your other cheek. And then you're going to try to smite them in their other cheek. And then they're going to try to hit you in the nose. Then you're going to hit them in the nose. And here's what he's saying. When we choose to retaliate, there is no end in sight. You say, well, how do you end it? How do you end it? Here's what Jesus says. Here's how you end it. You take the hurt and you don't retaliate. He said that you resist not evil, but whosoever shall smite thee on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. Notice verse 40. And if a man will sue thee at the law, and take away thy coat. If someone wants to sue you and take your coat away, he says, let him have thy cloak also. And here's what Jesus is teaching. He's saying that when it comes to the tit for tat, when it comes to the fighting and the retribution and the revenge and the retaliation, when it comes to the game of recompensing evil for evil, there will be no end in sight. And the only way to end it is for someone who is mature to say, I'll take the hit, I'll take the hurt, I'll take the insult, I'll take the injury, and I won't retaliate because if I do, and I won't retaliate because if I do, there is no end in sight. Let me tell you something. There is no satisfaction to your flesh when you choose to recompense evil. In fact, carnal people might see you as weak. Sinful people and angry people might see you as weak. And I'll be honest with you, I'll just testify to you. I have found myself in situations because the Lord has allowed us to have some sort of influence and presence on the internet and on YouTube. And I have found myself in situations where I've had other pastors and other people with platforms and situations where they've attacked me personally and they've attacked me. And I've had to make a decision whether I want to retaliate and whether I want to engage in this warfare publicly. And here's what I've chosen and here's what has guided me is that if I do that, where does that end? Because in my mind, I say, well, I'll just make one video answering the one question and I'll give up one insult and I'll be fine. Except they think the same thing. And then I think the same thing. And then they think the same thing. And at the end, we look like a bunch of childish, immature children. And someone, at some point, here's all I'm telling you. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm more spiritual than you are. I'm just trying to tell you this, that at some point, someone has to decide to take the hits and to take the hurts and to say there's no end to this game. So we don't recompense evil for evil. We don't retaliate. At some point, someone has to turn the other cheek and end it. 1 Corinthians 6. I love how the Apostle Paul will often take the teachings of Jesus and apply them differently, but give the same idea. 1 Corinthians 6 and verse 1, he says, dare any of you having a matter against another go to law before the unjust and not before the saints? Now, you might look at this and say, well, this has to do with lawsuits, so therefore this doesn't apply to us. But wait a minute, Matthew 5:40 had to do with lawsuits also. If any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy cloak. And Jesus taught that within the context of turn the other cheek. So the idea is this, that we are to turn the other cheek when we've been wrong or we've been done wrong. And here's what the Apostle Paul is teaching. He says, dare any of you having a matter against another, go to law before the unjust and not before the saints. Now there's a lot of teaching here that I'm not going to get into. Notice verse 6. But brother goeth to law with brother, and that before the unjust. Now therefore, there is utterly a fault among you. And by the way, this is not teaching about fighting with a reprobate or fighting with the world or fighting with the devil. This is talking about brothers, Christians, fighting each other. Because I don't know if you know this, but even Christians can get in the flesh. He says, now therefore, there is utterly a fault among you because you go to law one with another. And then he teaches the same concept that Jesus is teaching when he says, turn to him the other cheek also. He says, why do ye not rather take wrong? Why do you not rather suffer yourself to be defrauded? You say, why does he teach that? Here's why he teaches that. Because there's only one way to end the game. And some of you have been playing this game with your spouse, and some of you have been playing this game with your mom, and some of us have been playing this game with a coworker, with an employer. Here's all I'm telling you. When we engage in retaliation, when we engage in the game of recompensing evil for evil, please know this, there is no end in sight. Be prepared to grow bitter and angry and ugly, because this will never end. So why should we not play the game? Why should we not retaliate? Here's why. Because the only way to end it is to take the hit, to turn to him the other cheek, to take the loss, to let him have the cloak, to take the wrong, to suffer yourself to be defrauded. However you want to put it, whichever phrase you want to take. The only way to end it is for someone to choose to take the wrong. But realize this, when you do that, people will say, oh, you're weak. Oh, you're scared. And you're going to have to decide whether it is more important what God thinks of you or what people think. And whether it's more important to be right or to make sure everybody knows you are right. Because you may be right in the wrong way, and you may be innocent and cross the line of innocence. So there will be no end in sight. Let me give you a second reason why you don't want to play the recompense to no man evil for evil game. We said number one, there's no end in sight. Number two, because we are treating people. When we choose to play this game, we are treating people the way they treated us. And to that, some of you would say, exactly. In fact, that's the one rule of the game. The one rule of the game is I'm treating you the way that you treated me. Notice what the Bible says in Judges 15. Look at verse 10. And the men of Judah said, why are ye come up against us? And they answered, to bind Samson are we come up. Notice what they said. Notice their rationale. Notice their justification. To do to him as he had done to us. Because isn't that the rule to the game? The rule to the game is I treat you the way you treat me. Notice verse 11. Then 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Edom and said to Samson, knowest thou not that the Philistines are rulers over us? Why is it that thou hast done this unto us? And he, Samson, said unto them, notice his justification, notice his rationale, notice the one rule to the game, as they did unto me, so have I done. The point is this, they did me wrong. The point is this, they insulted me. The point is this, they embarrassed me. The point is this, they hurt me. The point is this, they lied about me. The point is this, they spread rumors about me. The point is this, they've done me wrong. That's the whole point, Pastor. Don't you get it? I'm not doing anything bad to them. I'm not doing anything worse than they've done to me. I'm doing to them what they did to me. And what I'm telling you is that's the problem if the Bible is your authority. That's the problem if you want to be a follower of God and of the Lord Jesus Christ. Are you there in Proverbs 20? Look at verse 22. Say not thou, I will recompense evil, but wait on the Lord, and he shall save you. Proverbs 24:29. Say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. I will render to the man according to his works. See, the Bible says, no. You don't treat people the way they treated you. You say, well, wait a minute. Then how should I treat them? The Bible actually tells us, don't treat people the way they treat you. Don't render to any man the way that they've rendered to you. Don't treat people the way they've treated you. You say, well, how should I treat people? Matthew 7, verse 12. And this is throughout the whole Bible. I'll show it to you in one place. This is Jesus speaking. He says, therefore, all things whatsoever ye would that men should do to you. Notice what he says. Ye would, the word would means what you want, your desire, your will. He said, all things that ye would that men should do to you. He says, what you want people to do to you, Jesus says, do ye even so to them. For this is the law and the prophets. And see, as Christians, the Bible tells us that we are not to treat people the way they've treated us, but we are to treat people the way that we would like to be treated. And you cannot follow that directive from Jesus and engage in the recompense evil for evil game. Because the one rule of the game is to treat people the way they've treated us. And Jesus says, no. We're better than that. We're more mature than that. We don't treat people how they've treated us. We treat people the way we'd like to be treated. And here's the truth, and here's what I know about you. I'd like people to show mercy to me. I'd like people to show grace to me. And I'd like people to show patience to me. And I'd like people to give me the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes when I say stupid things and I do stupid things and I have an attitude and I let my tongue slip, I'd like people to say, you know what, maybe he's just having a bad day. Let me show him some grace. And here's what I'm saying. If I want people to treat me that way, then I should treat people that way. Be not deceived, God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And if we begin to sow grace and mercy and love and patience, you might reap mercy and grace and love and patience. And by the way, let me just help you out. Some of you aren't reaping that because you've not been sowing that. See, the problem with the retaliation game is not only that there's no end in sight. It's not like you've got 4 quarters and then the game's over. It'll never end. But the other problem is this, that we're treating people the way that they treated us. And the Bible says, say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. Verse 18, if it be possible, as much as lieth in you, live peaceably with all men. Sometimes it's not possible. He says, if it be possible. Then he says this in verse 19. He says, dearly beloved, avenge not yourself, but rather give place unto wrath, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, saith the Lord. When it comes to vengeance and revenge, the Bible says that vengeance belongs to the Lord, that God will make all things just, and that God will step in, not on our time schedule, not on our timetable, but God will step in and he will make sure that all the wrongs are made right and that everything balances out in the end. Judges 15 verse 3. And Samson said concerning them, now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines. You are to live in such a way that people could not find fault in you. It doesn't mean you're without sin. It doesn't mean you're perfect. And here's what Samson said. He said, I'm going to engage in this, but I'm innocent. I'm the innocent party. I'm the one that was wrong. And at the end of the day, people will know that I was blameless. He says, now shall I be more blameless. Here's the point that I want you to understand, is that is a lie. The biggest reason you want to stay away from the retaliation game is because as soon as you engage, you're no longer innocent. As soon as you engage, you're no longer blameless. As soon as you engage, you're no longer without fault. As soon as you engage, you're part of the problem. And isn't this true with our children? Where one kid will take a toy from the other kid, so the other kid decides to engage in the recompense evil for evil game and punches the kid. And then the parents get involved. What do the parents say? Well, now you're going to get a spanking for stealing the toy from your kid, from your brother, and you're going to get a spanking for punching your brother because you were innocent till you chose to play the game. Because when we play that game, we're no longer blameless. And when God steps in to take vengeance as God has promised he will, he might be like that father that says, well, you're getting spanking for doing this, but now I also have to deal with you because you engaged in the recompense evil for evil game.